Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Friday Morning at the Fun House alongside the most fun individual on the entire planet, Mr. Martin Popoff.
Yes. Well, I caution that that's not nearly true, but yes, here we are. Here we are on a it's summer again here in Toronto. It's going to be summer for a while, I'm sure, but yeah, ready to go on this very hot topic.
Yes, probably one of the hardest topics we've ever covered as far as I'm concerned, because we're talking about the most kick-ass, best favorite riffs of the 70s, and we've somehow centered on this number of 40. We've each picked out 40. I was just telling Martin, I could have easily, my overall list is about 100 plus, and trying to whittle it down to 40 was just absolutely excruciating. So,
Yeah.
my 40 that I'm going to present today, it could change tomorrow because I'm looking at like what didn't make like the cut, and I'm like, oh man, I'm crying here. There's just so many good riffs, great riffs in this decade,
Yeah.
that this was really, really hard to kind of whittle down. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see if we have any in common. I'm sure we will have some.
Yeah.
And
It's funny because I originally proposed 20, and then I said I got to have at least 30, and then I said I got to have 40. But once I got to 40, I was kind of fine with it, and I have no honorable mentions, so mine isn't a whittled down list. So I just crept it up to 40, and I'm kind of happy with it. So I'm good.
what I did was I initially, when I was thinking, because we went with 20, then said 40, and then I'm like, oh, maybe we'll do 50, but then we stuck on 40, and then I just kept jotting stuff down on my note sheet, and before you know it, I had just a shit ton of great riffs, and I'm like, all right, now how do I do this? So I sat yesterday for like 2 hours and I went through all this stuff, and I was just like, all right. And now I guess I'm happy with my list, but like I said, I keep looking at what didn't make the cut, and I'm like, man, I easily could. I mean, if we just for shits and giggles, if you want, I could run through my honorable mentions when we're done. And there's just so much great stuff.
Sure.
There's
Do
way
it.
too
Do
many,
it.
way
Yeah.
too many.
Yeah.
So
Funny. Cool.
anyway, all right. So we're going to do 10 at a time because we've got a lot to cover here. And, folks, most people know these songs. They probably know these riffs. We're not going to talk in depth about all of them, because how the hell do you describe riffs other than the fact that we love them and they're great and they're heavy and they're licky and all this kind of stuff? I don't know. So this will
Um,
be fun just to see like what we've amassed here and how many that we duplicate, because 40 is a lot of songs, but we'll
yeah.
see. We'll see. So,
Well,
all
I
right.
thought about that. I was gonna say beware. There's gonna be a lot of singing here, so I really be singing a lot of these riffs. But and I pulled show and tell for about half of each
Yeah,
bunch. So
I got
we're gonna go 10 each,
yeah.
10 back and forth. I left mine chronological, so this is interesting. So I'm gonna start with Led Zeppelin Celebration Day. I've always thought this is the coolest riff they ever did. The most sort of thoughtful, interesting, with the that whole thing, right? That's a really weird, cool riff. So I've always liked that song, and I've always put it in my top about 3 Led Zeppelin songs of all time. Next, I'm going with Black Sabbath Into the Void. I just think it's an absolute bulldozer. It is a riff. This gets into the whole thing where there you go. Where we get into the
Spoiler
whole
alert, something from that album is coming up.
yeah. We get into a little bit of the discussion of what's a riff and what's a chord sequence, and sometimes riffs are mixes of chord sequences and single or 2 notes at a time kind of thing, right? The whole idea of what's a power chord, what's a bar chord, how do you spell bar chord? Is it BAR? Is it BARRE? I deal with that one all the time, right? So yeah, it's interesting. But Into the Void, I mean, Tony's the riff king, absolutely. Next, I went with Shadows of Grief, 1971, from Look at Yourself. I just love that whole descending. I mean, I guess it's kind of a chord sequence, but yeah, I think it's one of the coolest things they ever did. It's my favorite song. As I've said before, I interviewed King Diamond once, and we bonded over the fact that was our favorite Heap song. So that was really cool.
That's right.
Next, I'm going with Budgie Breadfan from 1973. Budgie's a band that we always talk about where we, aren't the greatest. They aren't the greatest band in the world with the greatest albums in the world, but I'm finding they had some of the greatest riffs in the world,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And Breadfan is just an absolute classic, and then Metallica goes and covers it, but it's so cool. Next, I went with Sabra Cadabra from Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. There's the coolest thing I own, of course, my fully signed. And I just love the whole that whole thing. I think it's kind of like a kick-ass. It's almost like they're slightly into a sort of a boogie rock scene with that one, and the production is just so cool. And then I'm into Montrose Space Station #5, the first absolutely classic American heavy metal song. It's the best song on this album. It's the most modern, it's the most riffy, it's the most complicated riff, I'd say, on the whole album. Just a absolute, basically a Judas Priest song from Montrose in 1973, which is very cool. Next, I went with Queen, Modern Times Rock and Roll. This is a band that has a lot of good, not like a lot of good heavy songs, a lot of good chord sequency songs, but yeah, these short shockers, that one's just got an absolutely killer up and down. Again, a Judas Priest riff in 1973 from Queen. Next, I'm going with Budgie, In for the Kill from 1974. Just a grinding sort of, dun, 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 dun. There's shakers going on in the background, all that stuff.
Gallop, heavy metal gallop from 19...
Yeah. Then he sings along. Then as the verse comes in, he's singing along with a high version of it, in unison. It's really cool. Next, I'm going with Deep Purple Burn, which is a true riff, absolutely a riff. And it's Deep Purple heads consider it the greatest Deep Purple song of all time, right? I just think it's just an absolute superlative Richie Blackmore riff. He'd do that kind of thing many times. And then just for kicks, I went with Deep Purple Stormbringer, 1974. So just it's just a cool, different from Burn. I like that about it. Also the title track, but just a classic sort of thing. And there's some cool licks in there as well. So that is my first 10, takes us from 1970 to 1974.
Cool. All right, so I didn't do mine chronological. I should have, because that would have made a hell of a lot more sense. But mine are just kind of sort of in order of how I like them, I guess. Maybe not really. I didn't grab stuff for everything. So my number 10, it's funny because this band has a song called Sledgehammer, but yet the song that I picked has more of a Sledgehammer riff, Not Fragile by BTO, Bachman Turner Overdrive. I wore the shirt just for them today. I mean, it's just so heavy, so pile driving. And yeah, this whole concept of like what actually is a riff. Is it a chord sequence? Is it a series of licks? To me, a riff is all of that and more, as long as it kind of repeats. It starts at the beginning and you get it repeated throughout the song. That's the riff to me. And that's what people remember. If you remember the riff, it's a riff, right? If you remember that guitar passage, it's a riff. So that's my number 40. Next up, Back in the Saddle by Aerosmith. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. It's nasty. It's greasy. It's grimy. It's a classic. Perry and Whitford at their best. Just a lot of riffs from Aerosmith, and hopefully we'll see some from Martin as well. But that's always been one of my favorites. Next up, this band's got a lot of them too, especially in the 70s, but I think Anthem by Rush is one of their best. It's so memorable. It's so heavy. I like the little things that Alex is doing. Just very, very cool song. Very, very cool riff to open up the song. Just absolutely amazing. Next up, we're going to go with a band from New York. Pretty obscure band, Serve Lord Baltimore. The lick is Hellhound from their first album, Kingdom Come. Man, talk about hack and slash, man. It's just the tone of the guitar, and he's just flying all over the place and doing this real nasty riffing. Very, very cool song. Kind of like almost like God, it's almost punky in spots because it's just so grimy and nasty, but very, very cool. Loads of riffs on that first album from Sir Lord Baltimore. That's my next pick. After that, we've got one of the classics of all time. Ted Nugent, Cat Scratch Fever. It's just, I mean, the song itself probably isn't great. I think the riff is actually better than the song itself, but it's just another example of how this guy was writing some great riffs early on in his career. And we could, there's certain bands that we're going to talk about today where probably half this list could be made up of just riffs from some of their albums. But yeah, Cat Scratch Fever is next up. Then we're going to go to Blue Oyster Cult, ETI, Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Boom, boom, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. How cool is that? So awesome. Love it to death. All right, next up, we mentioned Master of Reality before. Well, we're going to go back to Master of Reality because to me, Children of the Grave is one of the great all-time crushing, chugging, galloping, just doomy riffs ever. And yeah, it's classic. Martin, honestly, I had to stop myself from half of this list or more from being Black Sabbath riffs. It's
Yeah.
just Tony has got a million of them, and I applaud you for the. So you picked one before, which I think from Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, which is I didn't even think of that one, and that's great as well. So that's an awesome pick. Next up, I'm going to go number 33. I'm going to go to Kansas, Child of Innocence, off the Mask album. Kansas aren't known for being a big riffy band, but they do have some great ones. I mean, this one's just it's just so awesome, so heavy, so almost not proggy, but just absolutely kick ass. Kerry Livgren and Rich Williams. That's my number 33. Number 32, Stone Cold Crazy, Kansas Queen from the third album. I mean, maybe the first kind of proto thrash song. Who knows? It kicks ass. Love it. Number 31, last for this round. Where is it? I know I pulled it. Did I not pull it? Oh, geez, don't pull it. All right, I guess I did. It is Medusa by Trapeze. So, courtesy of Mel Galley, Glenn Hughes and company. So doomy, slow, menacing, just absolutely crushing riff on this great album from Trapeze. They're more known for kind of like a groovy hard rock band, but Medusa is just totally heavy and just an absolutely monstrous riff. And that is my number 31. Back to you.
Funny you mentioned Medusa. I just had a top 20 sweet songs the list that I went up for that I did for Goldmine, and I put Medusa as my second favorite sweet song of all time. I just love that tune. So cool.
It's not a title you see all that often, right? Right.
Yeah, and well, as I wrote in the thing, like my fond story of that is I bought the single to Action. I'm pretty sure it was Action. It's funny. I bought this single. I could swear it was Action, non picture sleeve as a kid. And because Medusa was on the B side and it was a non LP track, right? And then I went and looked on Discogs just to verify, that my writing is correct, and I couldn't find a copy of that there, which is odd. So I'm thinking, was it really Action as the A side? I thought it was, but anyways, maybe someone can tell us in the comments if that exists or if I'm making it up. Okay, so back to 1974. My next entry is Uriah Heep's "Suicidal Man." I love that tune. Just carnal guitar production on it. Just one of the heaviest songs, and coming later when you don't expect that many heavy songs, right? Then this one might be showing up on Pete's list, UFO Rock Bottom, right? Rock Bottom's an absolute drop dead classic for Michael. Our band played that live in the 80s. Yeah, such a cool tune and a great, complicated, thoughtful riff. Next I went with, where is my, I have that one out here, I guess. Oh yeah, I do have it out here. This is this bunch, yeah. So like I say, I grabbed 5 of these per batch. Next, I went with Black Sabbath. There's my other coolest thing I have, the fully signed Sabotage. But I have 2 from here. I went with Hole in the Sky. Just a grinding, bendy, again, amazing tone. And then honestly, Symptom of the Universe is the riff that almost everybody thinks about when they think about this question as the greatest Tony riff. I hear it mentioned all the time because it's just hits you right between the eyes with that doom note, that Diablos in Musica tritone kind of thing. So yeah, Hole in the Sky and Symptom of the Universe. Next, I went with Led Zeppelin, the Wanton song. Which is just such a cool, just that whole, the spaces in it and stuff, and the way it resolves, and it's complicated. It's
groovy. It's groovy too. That's a
yeah,
groove.
yeah. John just like cooks with it, right?
Oh yeah.
And then I went with ZZ Top, Nasty Dogs, and Funky Kings. They had a few that I could have put in here, but you know that whole again, maracas. I think there's some maracas going on in that one. And then I went with Angel Pressure Point, a classic sort of burn type of riff. You know, there's a class of riffs, a family of riffs that are like the whittly, you know, kind of a quick note sort of thing. And Pressure Point is really cool. And then even when it goes into the verse, where he lays back a little, that's almost a little riffy as well. Very, very cool one there. Next, I went with Ted Nugent, Dog Eat Dog. There's a few on here. Hammer Down could have been on this as well, but Dog Eat Dog's just got that cool kind of swaggering. It's heavy metal, but it's a little traditional. There's kind of like a Stonesy swagger to it, and actually a little bit of Cat Scratch Fever to it as well. I think. So yeah, that's one from that. And then my last. Oh no, I skipped one from this batch. We've got Aerosmith, Lick and a Promise, which just feels like an explosive, like guitar slinger, guitar slung low, kind of like almost a Geronimo riff to that. And it's complicated, you know, with the old, you know, it sounds, it's almost the perfect song where you have that idea of Aerosmith is like America's new improved version of the Rolling Stones. It's like I almost hear that riff and go, Keith would listen to that and go, I wish I would have thought of that. It's just so heroic, right? So guitar heroic. And then my last one of this batch, I went with Passage to Bangkok, 2112. You know, with a snaky Egyptian, Middle Eastern sort of thing. You know, it's just a really, really cool kind of sinister Rush one there. So that is my next batch of 10.
Cool. We had some good ones today. All right, my number 30 is we're going back to Queen's debut. We're going to go with Son and Daughter. Just it's amazing how heavy this first album is. Just so good. It's amazing how you could take this kind of like little blues passage and make it just so heavy in the hands of Mr. Brian May. Just a kick-ass riff. Love it, love it, love it. Number 29, we're gonna go to Riff Raff by AC/DC. Slashing classic Angus and Malcolm right there. I mean, it just doesn't get much better. It's amazing how many cool, like, just jagged kind of riffs that they have early in the catalog, and that's always been one of my favorites. Number 28, you know, you talk about, it's funny when you look at our list and how many of these riffs are really simple and pile driving, and then how many have these like little intricate bits that just make up just such an absolutely cool riff. And that's my next one, Exciter by Judas Priest. I mean, just how awesome is that? And then when it kicks in the it's just total classic chug. I mean, just absolutely amazing stuff from Judas Priest, Exciter. Next up, we're going to go to, hold on, I'm going to go to Stranglehold by Ted Nugent. Speaking of very simple, but very, very effective, just, man, just menacing and just one of his classic riffs. Again, sometimes simple is really, really good. Stranglehold by Ted Nugent. Next up, we're going to go to, back to Blue Oyster Cult. Got to go with Godzilla off the Spectres album. It's kind of doomy, just basic, meaty, chuggy, awesome. Gotta love Godzilla, great stuff. How about let's see, Martin has already mentioned it. Did I grab it? I don't think I did. Bread Fan by Budgie. Absolutely classic. There's a reason why so many up and coming metal bands in the 80s loved that track and love Budgie. Just such a awesome stuff. Next up for number 24, we're gonna go with the did I bring it? No, I didn't bring it, but Sabbath Bloody Sabbath title track. Absolutely classic. I mean, Tony's got a million of them. This kicks off the album in just such an amazing way, such a memorable riff. That's number 24. Number 23 is Cactus, One Way or Another. Just amazing song. I wanted to rank this even higher because I just absolutely love this, man. I tell you, Jim McCarty, such a great guitar player, another guy who could make these bluesy licks and riffs and just turn them into these just big, huge sounding things. Let's see what else. All right, number 22. How about a little Manny Charlton in action? Miss Misery by Nazareth. So heavy. That's their big doom song, man. Again, you talk about sometimes simple is the best. Dun, dun, dun. Just doesn't get much simpler, more basic, more primal than Miss Misery. And last for this list, for this section here, we're gonna go to Kiss, and I'm gonna go with Watching You from the Hotter Than Hell album. Absolutely love it. It's got this kind of spooky vibe, you know. So good. Absolutely so good. I think one of my favorite renditions of that is the old black and white footage from Winterland in 19 whatever the year that was, 1975, that you can watch. They got the video available for that, where they got the candelabra going, right, the camera's focused on that, where the riff is going in the background, then they focus into the band. There's Gene looking all sorts of evil and whatnot. Just so good. Oh, one of my favorite Kiss riffs of all time. So there we go.
Cool. All right. All right. So my second batch went 74 to 76. This batch goes 76 to 78. I'm going to kick off with Scorpions' Virgin Killer. I still think it's the heaviest song they ever did.
Oh, great.
I swear, as kids, it might be like the heaviest song of the 70s for us. I mean, it's just so radical, right? That, yeah, the big pick scrape, and then and then the drums kick in. Yeah. And Klaus is just going crazy, right? Next I went with let's see, let's get it out here. Max Webster Hangover.
Good choice.
It's just one of the coolest sort of, you know, it's kind of an octave jumping thing, right? And it's it really moves around. It's kind of cool and sophisticated. Our band played that one live as well. Thin Lizzy, Bad Reputation next. One of the greatest, most technical, coolest Thin Lizzy songs, you know, and then, you know, that descending piece, and there's like a dropped beat or added beat sort of thing, and playing over the bar and all that kind of thing. So yeah, that's a good technical one from them. Speaking of technical, Aerosmith, Draw the Line. I've sometimes called this the greatest song of all time, you know, cheekily. But I think it's one of the greatest riffs of all time. And it reminds me, I always say this, it reminds me of Celebration Day. But I just love that whole dun 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 dun, you know, the little high part. And it's just such an ingenious thing that they put together. It's definitely my favorite Aerosmith song. Next I'm going with Sitting by the Pool, Derringer. You know, the whole and the intro is like the coolest thing Jimmy Page never wrote. Like that intro, I always imagine it would be so cool if they covered that song at O2 or something, right? I think I mentioned that before, but yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like an improved version of Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo kind of thing.
Yep.
Next, I went with Dissonant Aggressor, Judas Priest. There could be, you know, just like Tony, there could be tons and tons of Priest on this list, of course. But this is just a crushing, heavy song from them. Heaviest song, you know, to date as of 77. And then do they improve on it? You know, maybe. I think the production improves, but it's such a complicated, thoughtful, cool riff. Next, I went with Scorpions, Sails of Charon, which is just their absolutely elegant Kashmir Stargazer moment, of course. There you go. You know, and even the whole intro thing is kind of a riff, you know, and then you know, the double fisted on the hi-hat going along with it. So cool. No bass, right?
No,
and then everything kicks in, and then that's a new riff, and then the singing starts, and that's even another new riff. So yeah, that's a really good one on this list, actually, for having lots of good riffs, right? Maybe there's a future show in that, eh? Songs that have a lot of good riffs in them, you know, in one song.
Multiple riffs. Yep.
Yeah. Next, I went with a bit of an obscure one, but it is an absolutely great riff. Tease On the Loose from On the Loose. You know, it's basically goes so it's a complicated, cool, you know, it's a little Son of Burn kind of thing. There's a couple of good ones on here. The other big one is Ready to Move on here as well. That's a really cool riff. So there you go from Tease, Canadian band. It's kind of obscure. Sticking with obscure, Ram Jam, Just Like Me. You know, and what makes this riff cool is the musical way that the transitions happen and the way it works with the vocal. It actually goes in unison with the vocal, but it does that whole You know, the little secret agent man thing in there. But the cool part is when it goes. So that's a really cool one. But there's a bunch of really good riffs on here that you could have put on here, like your Hurricane Ride and your Pretty Poison, Runway Runaway. So there's lots of good riffs on that from our good buddy Jimmy Santoro. And then my last one for this batch, oddly, this is one that I think of when someone just mentions this question. This riff comes to mind to me all the time for some reason. It's a bit obscure. Judas Priest Hero's End, because it's just that whole. It's like a little Japanese origami thing, right? It's like a little bit of math rock. You know, it goes up, it goes down. It sounds like it's backwards. It's just a really ingenious, cool little riff, and it sounds like nothing. You know, it doesn't really follow a lot of the musical rules of even, you know, the great technical Judas Priest songs. It's just a really cool, weird one. So that is my next batch.
Oh, wow, a lot of good stuff here. A lot of good stuff here. Too many great riffs. All right, number 20 for me, I'm going to go with a Whole Lot of Rosie by AC/DC. Classic, so energetic, so ACD. I mean, you know, it's like I always had this vision of, you know, Angus prancing around doing the hopping thing on the stage, and it's like whenever I hear Whole Lot of Rose, it's all I think of is him just doing that. It's just so good. It's so exuberant, so raucous, just absolutely kick ass. One of my favorite AC/DC riffs. Whole Lot of Rosie, number 20. Number 19, I'm gonna go with Rock Candy from the first Montrose album. Just love it, man. It's just slow and grinding. I absolutely love Ronnie's tone on this entire album. This whole album is filled with great riffs. That's one of my favorite of the more slower ones. Just completely awesome. Love it, love it, love it. Number 18, I'm gonna get, you know, there's some riffs on my list that are from songs that I probably heard a million times and don't need to ever hear again, but I still will give full credit to the riff that's in the song. Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple. Got to have it on here. Again, I never need to hear Smoke on the Water again, but man, the riff is just absolutely ingenious from Ritchie Blackmore. Everybody knows it's one of the most famous riffs of all time. It has to be on this list. Same thing with my number 17. Again, it's just a terrific, terrific riff, and that is Iron Man from Black Sabbath, from Paranoid. Got to have it. Just between that and Smoke on the Water, two of the classic riffs of all time.
True.
Again, don't need to talk about it. Oh, you know what? It turns out I did have the Medusa album. So let me just throw that up there. So sitting at the bottom of my pile. Number 16, I'm going to go with also from, hold on, where's the album? Also from Hotter Than Hell. I'm going to go with Parasite. Very basic, very, very cool, very menacing. Love it. Just absolutely love it. And then number 15, also, I'm going to give some props to Sales of Sharon. It's just killer. I mean, Uli, man, it's just the guy. There's a lot of great riffs and licks on those early Scorpions albums. Just too many to even mention here. But yeah, I call that the kind of, it's like the snaking riff. You could just picture a snake coming out of the snake charmer thing. That's Sales of Sharon. Just so good. Love it to death. Number 14, I'm going to go with The Rover by Led Zeppelin off of Physical Graffiti. There's another one. There's riffs all over the place in that song. So it starts off with that at the beginning, and then it goes into the main riff, and then there's another riff in the chorus. Just nonstop Jimmy Page riffarama on that one. That is my number 14. My number 13, did I grab a CD? I don't think I did. I'm going to go with Emerald by Thin Lizzy off the Jailbreak album. Again, that's one of those ones that doesn't really start off with the main riff, but then once that main riff comes in, it's just classic. Just feels like Ireland, you know. It's just awesome. Absolutely amazing. Love it, love it, love it. Number 12, I'm going to go to Judas Priest, Saints in Hell off of Stained Class. I mean, that's just such a evil heavy riff from those two guys. I remember when they resurrected that song live a couple of years ago on tour. I was kind of like in my glory. I'm like, I never thought I would see Priest play Saints in Hell. It also's got a lot of groove, which is really cool. That is my number 12. And last one for this list, I'm going to go with Black Knight by Deep Purple. Of course, the great single that came out right before the In Rock album, you know. I just love it. Just so good. Blackmore in all his glory right there. So yeah, that's my next batch of 10.
It's funny. This is playing out a little bit like that whole idea. Well, this is actually a mirror to our golden earring episode a little bit, because you allow a little more tradition in your riffs, and a little more chunkiness, and a little less, note density, and a little more anchoring to blues tradition coming through. So you've got some older things in here than I would. It's kind of interesting. And like I say, the golden earring episode, we hilariously had no overlap at
None.
all. Yeah, you just like boom, all the early stuff, and me, all the middle era stuff, right?
I mean, there's been very little. How many songs have we overlapped on?
Two.
So,
I'm
two.
keeping track. Just
Jesus.
Bread Fan and Sales of Sharon so far.
That's
Out
it.
of 30. That's pretty good. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I don't think we're going to keep this completely to two, but we'll see. So yeah, my last batch goes from 1978 through to all the way to 1979. Atomic Punk, Van Halen. There's some amazing riffs on that first Van Halen album, but the whole and then when they break into the singing, you even get like another extra lick in there. Yeah, and great transitions and stuff. Oddly, Budgie comes back again. This is one I always think about with Budgie. Melt the Ice Away. Melt the ice away. And the way they just stop there and throw in the little jazz chord, right? Very cool, very cool. And that's basically your Whitley Ritchie Blackmore type riff, right? Your resolving sort of thing. Next, I went with Pete won't like this one, but I went to the Never Say Die album for Swinging the Chain. Wow, wow. And then that cool riff that comes later on. Bill Ward singing this song. Just a really cool, swaggering sort of, almost like it reminds me of Lick and a Promise a little bit, oddly enough. Next, I'm going to the this album. I took this out because I've got two riffs from this. Delivering the Goods. Really, really cool. And even that weird opening thing that they do. And then I've got Hellbent for Leather from here as well. For your typical like quick paced, young, fast, scientific kind of riff off of that one. And then a kind of a surprise entry. I went with Chiquita from Aerosmith,
Okay.
which is just such a, it's a weird one, right? It's weird like Celebration Day. It's weird like Draw the Line a little bit, right? So they can, they're always, that band is always striving. They're always ambitious, despite what we hear about the drugs and the laziness and lyrics at the last minute and all this kind of stuff, right? Chaos all the time. But they try super hard, when it comes to getting those albums finished, right? And I just think that was a really cool one. Next, I'm going with Blue Oyster Cult, The Vigil, my favorite Blue Oyster Cult song. I guess I like my octave jumping riffs, right? I love that idea, the My Sharona technique, right? So that's a bit like Hangover, right? But yeah, just such a cool and such a gorgeous recording on that song and on this album as well. And then I almost called an audible. I am going to call an audible. I have down here Eyes of the World from this album, which is an incredible riff, but it's a better song than Danger Zone. But I think the riff on Danger Zone is better, It's like almost an even more ingenious Kashmir. It's just like bouncing around, going up and down. And Eyes of the World's a little more leaden. But it's a little more of a serious song because Danger Zone kind of has a little bit of a naff chorus, as your UK compatriots would say, naff. Yes. So changing my mind there, going with Danger Zone. Next, I've got AC/DC Beating Around the Bush. It might even be their fastest riff, right? And just a really, really cool one on an album that really doesn't have a lot of riffs. It's just a lot of amazing chord sequences. This is my favorite AC/DC album, but that is super, super riffy. And then what would Friday at the Funhouse be without a without a Gillan mention to close things
Yeah,
off.
there you
So
go.
there we go. Gillan, I'll go with Roller. So cool, so heavy. Gillan has a lot of good riffs. They're buried in all that chaos of the production chaos and the keyboards and the super dirty drums. But Roller is just such a cool, super fast one. So there you go. That is my final 10 of 40.
All right. All right. So what do we got here? All right. Number 10 for me. Let's see. I'm going to go with Hole in the Sky from Black Sabbath and Mr. Tony Iommi.
Okay.
Absolutely killer. Yeah, you got Symptom and Hole in the Sky on here. Both are absolutely worthy to be on my list, but I went with Hole in the Sky. Just love it. Just barnstorming, just it's just underrated too. One of his most underrated riffs. That's number 10. Number 9, I'm gonna go with In for the Kill by Budgie with the other Tony. Yeah, this is just like grinding and galloping on. I feel like you're on a horse, You're like just rampaging through the Sierra. It's just awesome stuff. Budgie, number 9. Number 8, I'm gonna go with Rock the Nation by Montrose, Ronnie and Company once again. So second pick from this album. Again, there's so many great riffs from this record, but I just absolutely love that this album starts off with Rock the Nation. It's just so heavy, man. The sound of a Les Paul through a Marshall, just can't get enough of it. It's so good. That's number 8. Number 7. God, I could have fit a ton from this guy, but I'm gonna go with I'm the One from Van Halen from the first album. It's either that or Ain't Talking About Love. They're both great, but man, I'm the One has been my jam for the last like bunch of months. It's just barnstorms right out of the gate. Just so amazing. It's got swing and he's doing all this cool stuff, man. It's just absolutely amazing. Number 6, I'm gonna go with Jimmy Page and Company, Black Dog. I call this the Jimmy Page's circular riff. Just kind of goes around. It's just so awesome. Love it. Number 5, I'm gonna go with. Did I bring it? I don't think I brought it. No, I'm gonna go with Supernaut from Black Sabbath. So going back to the Black Sabbath. Well, once again, quickly becoming one of my favorite Tony Iommi riffs of all time. Just so amazing. I love the Bill's drums go in the background. It's just got a great groove. Awesome stuff. Number 4, I'm gonna go Alex Lifeson and Rush from the first album, Working Man. I have had a love affair with the Working Man riff now for God, close to 50 years. It's just absolutely so amazing. So heavy. Again, kind of bluesy because that first album's kind of bluesy, but just so big and metallic and boisterous. And I mean, you could say all you want about how everybody compared them to Led Zeppelin early on, but man, I don't know if Jimmy Page was doing anything as heavy as Working Man ever. It's just so great. Number 3, I'm gonna go to Rock Bottom, UFO, Michael Schenker, one of my favorite riffs of all time. Obviously, it's a number 3 for me. Just absolutely killer and so much fun to play. Just such a great fun song and fun riff to play. Number 3. Number 2, I'm gonna go with Burn from Deep Purple. Yeah, just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And as great as the studio version is, I love the live album on Made in Europe. I love the way it sounds even more so on that. Just amazing. And then number 1, I just got to give props to this because I think it's the one that really started it all. Black Sabbath from the first album. It's just so menacing and just so evil sounding. And I think so much of what we've talked about today in this episode owes so much to that riff right there because Tony's got a million of them. Like I said, I could have done half of this list or more of just Tony Iommi riffs because there's so many great ones from those first 6 or 7 albums. Just absolutely crazy. So yeah, that's my
great.
list.
Yeah. You took care of the history on here because when you think of riffs, you think of Smoke on the Water, you think of Black Dog, you think of Black Sabbath, you think of Iron Man, right? Those are those are probably the most iconic riffs of all time, right?
Probably.
Right there.
Probably.
Yeah. And so we had 6 overlaps out of the whole thing.
6 out of 40. Wow.
40, yeah. Crazy. Good stuff.
So you want me to rapid fire through some of my honorables?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, I got a lot, so strap yourselves in, folks. Symptom of the Universe, Under the Sun, Into the Void, all from Sabbath. Highway Star, Speed King, and Stormbringer from Deep Purple. Mississippi Queen and Never in My Life from Mountain. Seven Screaming Disc Busters, Red and the Black from Blue Oyster Cult, Guts from Budgie, Young is the World from Budgie, Zoom Club from Budgie, Smoke Screen and Paralyzed from Ted Nugent, She from Kiss, Genocide, Island of Domination, Dissonant Aggressor, Victim of Changes from Judas Priest, Jailbreak from Thin Lizzy, Passage to Bangkok from Rush, The Ocean, No Quarter, Cashmere from Zeppelin, and the Wanton Song, and Immigrant Song, Gypsy, Rainbow Demon, Free and Easy, Bird of Prey from Uriah Heep, Ride the Sky from Lucifer's Friend, Go All Night, Hammerhead, Getting Better, and Making Magic from Pat Travers Band, Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo from Derringer, Top of the Bill, Robot Man, Virgin Killer, Hellcat, Another Piece of Meat, Coast to Coast, and Can't Get Enough from the Scorpions. Let There Be Rock, Highway to Hell, Girls Got Rhythm from AC/DC, Hair of the Dog, Expect No Mercy from Nazareth, a lot of Skinner shit. I Ain't the One, Working for MCA, Midnight, Saturday Night Special, On the Hunt, Give Me Back My Bullets, Bitch, and Can't You Hear Me Knocking from the Stones, Crazy on You, Barracuda, Sing Child, Sing from, and Little Queen from Heart, Melvin Laid an Egg from Blood Rock, Sin's a Good Man's Brother, and I Come Tumbling from Martin's favorite band, Grand Funk Railroad, Carry On Wayward Son from Kansas, Red and Lark's Tongues and Aspic from King Crimson, I Don't Need No Doctor, Stone Cold Fever, Come On Everybody, and Hot and Nasty from Humble Pie, Jury from Trapeze, Way Back to the Bone from Trapeze, and last but certainly not least, Peace of Mind by Boston. There we have it. That's the list I was looking off of. And I know I forgot a ton more.
Wow. I couldn't think of any more good riffs. So
Man, dude, there's so many of them. There's so many of them. Like I could have done this show forever here. And then, and I'm sure like as soon as we get done taping today, I'm like, how the hell did I forget that riff? Because I'm sure there's more of those, but all right. So should we tell them what we're doing next week? Speaking of
I think so. Yeah. This just sort of came out of this show. I think we're going to do the greatest riffs of the 60s.
Yes.
And not go to 40 each. Maybe we'll go to 20 each.
We'll
see how that
I mean, it's obviously because the 70s is the beginning of this kind of more guitar-oriented rock music. So probably finding these great riffs in the 60s will be a little bit more challenging, but they're there. But we won't probably have the abundance of like we would for this, obviously for the 70s or God forbid the 80s, right? So I know everybody's going to ask for the 80s, right? It's like, when are you going to do the 80s riff? It's like, oh boy, that's
maybe. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit. I mean, the idea is that there's 10 times as many heavy metal albums in the 80s as there is in the 70s. So there's lots and lots more to choose from.
Yeah.
And, as time goes on, it gets a little more expected and regular kind of thing. But as soon as you mentioned that this morning, it was like, yeah, that would be kind of cool to find those. So yeah, let's do it. Let's commit to it.
All right, so there you have it. Another trio of episodes from us. So we've got Riffs of the 70s is today, the 60s next week, and the week after the 80s. We'll
do at least 40, if not 50.
If not 50.
We'll make it a cool 100 total.
Oh my God. We can't say much about any of it. We just got to rapid fire through the whole thing, right? Yep, that's probably what we're gonna have to do. So
there's some poetry to today being like the top 40, and then with the 80s it'll be the Billboard 100. So
yeah,
50 each. Let's do it. What the heck?
It'll be really interesting because I know Craig Kaminsky did it to me once before. I did a whole favorite guitar riffs of all time, like monthly show, I don't know, last year or something. And he went and he somehow edited together like all of the parts of me kind of singing the riff. How funny would it be if someone did this on today's episode where, Martin's like, and I'm like, that would be funny to see. So Craig, if you're watching, you're up for the task. There you have it. Go for it. Anyway, Martin, what's going on your end as far as like contrarians and podcasts and books and things like that?
Yeah, well, we got the History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff audio podcast. I've knocked off a couple of shows because I got a little bit of a business trip coming up, but I've got the Locating the Rolling Stones Sound is one coming up. But before that will be Is Black Sabbath Progressive Metal? And then Contrarians, we skipped the album cover show, but that'll be back. But there's a few Contrarians went up, and as always, you can get my my books from martinpopoff.com. A good one that aligns with this is that Who Invented Heavy Metal book, which is one of my favorite books. But that's actually going to align a lot more with our 60s show. Actually, probably. That really aligns with that, so that's going to be cool. But yeah, martinpopoff.com for all the books.
Cool. All right, go check all that out, folks, and stay tuned here on the channel. We got just in a couple hours, we got Ken Golden coming in to the Zoom. We'll be looking at the professor's picks for today. Brand new releases here on this Friday. We've got tomorrow, we've got Jamie Laszlo and his next review crew. Jamie hopefully has a really, really special guest for this one. I hope it all aligns. I'm not going to say too much more because you know how the schedules change last minute when you're trying to bring some superstars on board. But yeah, we should have someone very special on the next Review Crow episode
I'm
coming up
hope for
tomorrow.
Jimmy Page. Will it be Jimmy Page?
It
No?
won't be
Yes?
Jimmy
No?
Page, unfortunately.
Okay.
No, but someone really good that everybody here on the channel knows, and hopefully, and yeah, so that should be a lot of fun. And then of course Sunday is ranking the albums once again. We'll be doing a little fusion this Sunday. George Lemie, Eric Porter, myself will be ranking the albums of Simon Phillips's great fusion band Protocol. So we got 5 albums that's coming up on Sunday. Till then, visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together all the damn time. For Martin Popoff, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And we'll see you next time here at the Funhouse for favorite top riffs of the 60s. Till then, have a good weekend, everybody. Take care.